Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you a special video, a story of love that's both romantic and full of twists, between the cold-hearted CEO James and the strong, independent girl, LyTuDiep. But what makes this episode truly special is a sudden, unexpected event that turns Diep's life upside down and throws their entire relationship into an unpredictable whirlwind. Will James choose love, or walk away in a life-or-death moment? Can Diep overcome this shock and rediscover herself? All that and more in today's video, don't miss it. Life in the Highlands remained as quiet as the morning mist drifting across the mountain peaks. Diep had grown used to that rhythm, slow, gentle, yet filled with hardship. Day after day, she worked diligently like a honeybee, as if the busyness was the only way to silence the lingering pain buried deep within her heart. That morning, the sky was clear. Gentle rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting soft patterns on her back. Diep slung her familiar bamboo basket over her shoulders and followed a narrow dirt path leading up the western hill, where the honeydew melons were ripening at their peak. Each golden, plump fruit seemed nourished daily by the forest sun and mountain winds, lying quietly in the soil like nature's gift to those who labored tirelessly. One by one, she gently picked them, wiped off the dirt, and placed them carefully in her basket. Her figure bent low among the melon beds, long hair loosely tied, sun-darkened hands moving swiftly yet delicately. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead, yet the corners of her lips held a soft smile, the rare kind that only emerged when she was truly at peace, with her work, with nature, and above all, with herself. By noon, the basket was full. She adjusted the straps, lifted it onto her back, and began her descent back to the village along the familiar trail. Every wild bush, every roadside rock seemed to carry a memory of the days she had learned to rise again after being broken. But life was never just peace. At a bend in the path, past a thicket of trees where a small stream crossed the way, Diep suddenly stopped. A figure, strangely familiar, appeared before her. Tall. Hair trimmed short. His stance, quieter now. He saw her too. Pow. That name sliced through the thick skin of memory she had painstakingly buried. It was him. The man who once walked into her life with words of love, and also the one who had plunged her world into darkness, blood, and tears. In an instant, Diep's eyes dimmed. The melon basket on her back suddenly felt like a boulder. Her breath caught in her throat. She never thought she'd see him again, not in the bustle of the city, but here, on this quiet forest path. Pow stepped closer, keeping a respectful distance. His voice was low, hesitant. Diep. It's been a long time. How have you been? That simple greeting tightened her chest. She stood frozen, eyes filled with both caution and confusion. Inside her, an old battle began again, between the instinct to protect herself, and the rush of emotions awakened from the past. Once, with that very voice, Pow had whispered promises beneath the moonlight. But all of it had shattered in drunken rage and reckless violence. No one could understand the pain she had silently endured, the wounds on her skin had healed, but the scars in her soul remained. Pow took another step. His eyes, no longer filled with the anger of the past, now held an unsettling calm. I know. I have no right to stand here in front of you. But I've changed. I stopped drinking, I swear. I live alone now, farming, and every day, I think of you. Diep turned away, her hands clutching the basket straps so tightly her knuckles turned white. She was afraid she'd waver. Afraid that voice, that gaze, might revive the beautiful memories and blur out the cruel truth. The wind blew through. The forest held its breath. Only the rustle of dry leaves underfoot remained, and an unexpected reunion neither of them had imagined. Seeing Diep struggling with the heavy basket of melons on her back, carefully making her way down the rocky slope, Pao said nothing. He simply stepped forward and held out his hand. It wasn't like before, not forceful, not possessive. It was a quiet offer of help, like how strangers might lend a hand to each other at a morning market. "Let me carry that for you," he said softly, more like a question than a demand. Diep paused. Her heart twinged. Was it the old wound, or the sincerity in his eyes that she'd never seen in the past? She meant to refuse. But her shoulders were sore, and she was tired of always having to be strong. So she nodded, just slightly. Pao gently took the basket from her, careful not to make her feel uneasy. They walked side by side down the dirt path to the small market at the edge of the village. Neither said a word the whole way. Only the sound of footsteps, distant birdsong, and the faint scent of ripe melon in the breeze accompanied them. When they arrived, Pao set the basket down, and even gently wiped each melon clean before Diep displayed them for sale. People at the market watched them. Some recognized Pao, some whispered. But he didn't care. He moved as if silently trying to atone, piece by piece. And just then, from afar, a sharp gaze had been watching them, James. A black car pulled up at the edge of the market. The door opened. James stepped out, still as poised and composed as ever. But his eyes betrayed him, filled with unease. He saw the man beside Diep, helping her wipe down each melon like it was second nature. His heart clenched. He walked over quickly, calling softly, "Diep." Diep turned, startled. Pao looked up as well. Two men, from two different worlds. One had once been a source of pain. The other, now her peace. They stood face to face, saying nothing for a moment. But James didn't lash out, nor did he speak with hostility. Instead, he said calmly, "I'm James. May I speak with you, privately?" Pao nodded. They stepped aside, to a quiet corner behind the market. The air was tense, like a tight string, until James broke the silence. "I know who you are. And I know what you did to Diep. If you're here to stir up her life again, I won't let that happen." Pao stayed silent for a long while. Then he looked James in the eye, no longer clouded like before. His voice was low. "I understand. If I were in your shoes, I'd say the same. But you don't have to worry. I didn't come back to win her back. I just wanted to know if she's doing okay." James was taken aback by his calmness. Pao continued. "I quit drinking over a year ago. I don't get angry anymore, don't wander around. I work in the next village, grow vegetables in the morning, read books in the evening, raise some chickens. Back then, I was a monster. Now, I just want to live like a normal man. And I'm glad she has someone who truly values her." James looked at the man before him, no longer violent, just tired. The weariness of someone who had once fallen, and was now trying to get back up. Pao added, slowly but firmly, "I wish you both happiness. I won't bother Diep again. If we ever cross paths, I'll just be a passerby who says hello." Those words, honest and filled with remorse, struck a chord in James. He nodded gently, placing a hand on Pao's shoulder. "I believe you. And if ever you need help, don't hesitate to come to me. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether we make things right." Pao looked at him, eyes slightly glassy. "Thank you. I'll remember that." From that morning on, though they never became friends, there was something new between James and Pao. No longer confrontation, but a quiet, mutual respect. Pao left. leaving behind a basket of melons, an unexpected reunion, and a silent promise to never let Diep be hurt again. After that morning at the market, everything seemed to return to its peaceful rhythm. Diep remained busy with her fields and weekly market trips, while James continued overseeing operations at the lumber workshop, the very place he had rebuilt with his own hands and years of experience. But beneath that calm, quiet exterior, no one knew James was silently preparing for something important, something he hadn't yet told Diep, but which had taken root in his heart a long time ago. That day, James left the workshop earlier than usual. He wasn't wearing a suit or carrying a laptop like he did in the city. Instead, he wore a weathered dark brown shirt, a simple cloth hat, and rolled his trousers up to his knees. He walked along dirt trails, crossed a shallow stream, and ventured into the deep forest, where a grove of rare hardwood trees was being preserved and harvested with special care. He wanted to inspect each tree himself, not for business deals or production quotas, but for something far more personal, Diep. James had made up his mind. He would build a farm, not just a place to live, but a place to return to. A warm, humble haven infused with the breath of nature, just like Diep herself, grounded, resilient, and as pure as the first light of dawn. He wandered through the forest, running his fingers along each cut, studying the grain of the wood. He chose old trees, over 30 years of age, limb and seasoned sapele, known for their strength, smooth grain, and natural fragrance. Each tree was marked in red paint, along with his personal symbol. No one understood why a CEO like him would care so much about individual logs or saw cuts. But only James knew, he wasn't just choosing materials. He was laying the foundation for a future, his future with Diep. In the design sketch tucked inside his notebook, the farm would be built on a hillside, where the morning sun shone brightly, a gentle stream flowed year-round, and the land was rich. He envisioned a small wooden house with classic Enyang roof tiles, a wide porch where Diep could plant wildflowers, and a reading nook by the window, where she could sip tea while watching clouds drift across the mountain tops. Surrounding the home would be small plots for vegetables, fruit trees, and a little barn for chickens, ducks, rabbits. Everything would blend into nature, no concrete, no noisy machines, only the scent of wood, the whisper of wind, and the quiet hum of life taking root. It wasn't a gift meant to impress. It was a promise. A dream James hoped to step into with Diep, slowly, steadily, like how he chose each piece of timber, each nail, each stone for the foundation. When he brought the design back to the workshop, James didn't assign it to anyone else. He followed every step himself, from selecting the wood, treating it, to the smallest decorative details. Every carving, every window corner carried her image in his mind. He didn't want it to be grand, only honest, enduring, and full of warmth, like his feelings for her. And on quiet nights, sitting alone in his small countryside office, James would look at the sketches and smile. Though Diep still knew nothing of his plan, he believed, one day, she would walk into that home and realize. Every piece of wood, every stone, had already soaked up the love he'd quietly held for her, day after day, hour by hour, without a word. That late afternoon, as James returned home after a long day surveying the forest, the scent of tree resin and soil still clinging to his clothes. His mother was sitting by the living room window, knitting in hand, eyes gazing softly at the garden outside. Golden sunlight streamed through the curtains, bathing the room in a warm hue, making her silhouette appear even more gentle and serene, like the quiet love she had always carried for James all these years. As soon as she saw him walk in, she smiled faintly. "Late again. Let me guess, you were up in the forest today, weren't you?" James set his hat on the table and nodded, his voice calm and low. "Yes. I found some beautiful trees. I want everything for Diep, to begin with the very best." His mother looked at him for a long moment. She didn't ask further. Nor did she seem surprised. Instead, she placed the yarn ball on her lap and gently said, "You know, James, all these years, all I've ever wished for is that you'd find someone who could soften you. Someone who would make you willing to put down all that rigid logic and listen to your heart. And I believe you've found her." James paused, his gaze softening. "I've seen you change," she continued. "You used to think only about projects, profits, and career. But now, you walk under the sun, trek through the woods, just to choose each piece of timber. I don't need to ask why. I already know." James smiled and sat beside her. "I don't want to just be someone who shelters Diep from the storm. I want to be the one who plants trees with her, builds a home, and lives each day fully. No fancy restaurants. No luxury yachts. Just a little wooden house where we wake up together, to the sound of birdsong. That's enough." His mother gently held his hand, the same hand now tanned and roughened by months of life in the Highlands. Her eyes shimmered with a pride that words couldn't express. "If you need advice or help with anything, I'm here," she said softly. "Not because I want to interfere, but because it feels like I'm helping build the nest for my own child." She paused, then smiled tenderly. "Maybe someday, the place you and Diep live, will be somewhere I'd love to visit, too. A little corner for me to plant flowers, tell stories to my grandchildren, that wouldn't be so bad." James gently squeezed her hand. His heart swelled with a feeling too deep for words, a blend of gratitude, warmth, and something sacred. In that moment, beneath the golden wash of sunset light, mother and son said nothing more. They didn't need to. Both understood, what was being prepared wasn't just a house. It was the beginning of a true home. One built on love, on hope. And on the quiet strength of a mother's hand, always there, always sheltering. That afternoon, golden sunlight bathed the small garden in front of Diep's home. She wore a simple linen shirt, holding a broom as she swept the stone-paved yard, glancing now and then at the clock, her heart fluttering with anticipation. Tonight, James was coming for dinner. For the first time since they met, she had invited him to dine at her humble home. Everything had been prepared with care, vegetables freshly picked from the garden, fish braised in a clay pot, and a few rustic dishes she thought James might enjoy. As she was arranging pots of wild daisies along the porch, Diep heard unfamiliar footsteps at the gate. She looked up, and her heart froze. It was Pau. He stood there, hands in his pockets, his stance calmer than before, but his sudden appearance on her doorstep sent a wave of tension through her. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice cold but not loud. Pau looked at her for a moment, then replied, "I'm sorry for not calling ahead. But there's something important. Something I need to say." Diep took a small step back, still gripping the broom tightly. Her eyes didn't leave him. Her caution was not without reason, though Pau had shown signs of change, the wounds within her hadn't healed enough to allow full trust. Sensing her guardedness, Pau didn't step inside. He stayed on the doorstep, his voice slower and gentler than ever. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness. I know. I don't deserve it. But there's something I've kept from you, for years. And I can't stay silent any longer." Diep frowned. "What is it?" Pau met her eyes, no longer avoiding them. "Your birth parents are still alive." The words hit like thunder. Diep stood frozen. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. In that moment, a flood of painful memories returned, the lonely childhood, the cold words of her uncle, the man who raised her after her parents had supposedly passed away. All those years being told that her parents had died young, that she was an unwanted orphan. She stared at Pow, overwhelmed. "What are you saying? Do you even hear yourself right now?" Pow nodded, voice low and steady. "I know. And I don't expect you to believe me right away. But it's the truth. Your parents didn't die. They were forced to leave. That uncle, the one who sold you to my family, made up the story of their death, because he was afraid you'd run away to find them. He wanted to keep his control over you, and pin his debts onto your shoulders." Diep's knees gave way. Her hands dropped to her sides. The broom fell onto the stone floor, unnoticed. Her vision blurred. She couldn't hear Pow's next words. Only one thought echoed in her mind, over and over. "My parents are still alive?" Pow's words swept through Diep like a storm, uprooting everything she had once believed to be true. She sat there in stunned silence, eyes wide open, yet unable to truly see anything in front of her. That one sentence, "Your parents are still alive," echoed endlessly in her mind like a bell tolling in a long-forgotten chapel. All her life, Diep had believed her existence was a wound that could never heal, because she was an orphan, abandoned in a cold world, with no familiar arms to hold her. Since childhood, she had lived with the ache of watching classmates be picked up by loving parents, while she returned to a cold kitchen and the resentful stares of her uncle. She had cried alone on stormy nights, wondering if somewhere out there, someone had ever whispered her name with love. And now, even that one certainty, that she was orphaned, had crumbled. She looked up at Pow, tears clouding her eyes. You're sure? You're not joking with me, are you?" Pow shook his head gently, his voice low but resolute. "I would never joke about something like this. I heard it myself, from your uncle. He said it once, while drunk. That your parents are alive. He made up the story of their death because he was afraid you'd run away to find them. He was afraid of losing control over you, and of the debt he had slyly placed onto your shoulders. And I think you may even have siblings." Diep clutched her chest, as if unable to breathe. Her heart felt as though it had shattered, and yet, a beam of light had broken through the darkness that had weighed on her for so many years. "But, where are they?" she whispered. Pow was silent for a few seconds. He lowered his head, hands clenched, clearly struggling to hold back emotion. "I'm sorry. I don't know where they are. All I know is that they're alive. I have no right to lead you to them. But I do believe you deserve the truth." That last sentence caught in her throat. Inside her was a torrent of emotions: joy, fear, confusion, disbelief. If her parents were still alive, where were they? Had they ever searched for her? Did they think she was gone forever? Or were they, like her, clinging to a belief that their daughter had long left this world? She looked at Pow, her gaze softening. "Still, thank you," she said quietly. "Thank you for telling me, even though it hurts." Pow gave a faint nod, his expression suddenly still, as if he had finally unburdened a weight he'd carried for far too long. "I only hope this is the last thing I can do to make up for everything. You can hate me, never forgive me, but if this truth helps you find a way to be happy, then I can finally breathe a little easier." Then, Pow slowly turned away. He walked like a man who had just pulled a thorn from his own heart, painful, but freeing. Before he stepped through the gate, he paused and looked back one last time. Diep stood there, one hand resting lightly on the wooden doorframe, her small figure framed by the soft fading sunlight. But this time, her eyes no longer carried torment. They shimmered with hope. Faint, fragile, but real. That somewhere in this vast world, the people she once believed lost forever, were still alive. And maybe, just maybe, waiting for the day they'd be reunited. The wooden gate closed gently behind Pow. He did not look back again. After Pow left, leaving behind a storm of tangled emotions but also a surge of hope in Diep's heart, she sat silently for a long time on the wooden porch steps. In her hands was a cup of tea, long gone cold, but her heart had never felt so warm. All the years she had thought she was abandoned. All those afternoons she cried, believing she had no one left in this world. It all seemed to dissolve into the air the moment one truth came to light. She still had family. Her parents, and maybe even siblings, were still out there somewhere, breathing, living, and perhaps, remembering the daughter named Diep with aching hearts. And in that moment, the first person who came to her mind was James. Not because he was her lover, but because he had always appeared whenever she was at her lowest. The only person who never asked for anything, but was willing to give her everything, just so she could find peace. Wiping away the last of her tears, Diep picked up her phone and called him. Her voice trembled with emotion. "James, are you free? I need to tell you something. Something really important." Less than an hour later, his familiar car pulled up at her gate. James stepped in with worry etched across his face. But the moment he saw her waiting, eyes still red from crying but a small smile on her lips, he knew. This wasn't bad news. Diep didn't hesitate. She pulled him to sit beside her on the porch bench, where the air still held the warmth of the afternoon sun, and told him everything. About Pow. About the secret buried for years. And about the truth, that her parents, the ones she had believed were long gone, were still alive. James listened to every word, never once interrupting. His eyes never left hers. He didn't ask questions, didn't offer explanations. He simply listened, fully, silently, with the heart of a man who truly cared. When Diep finished her story, she looked at him, eyes glistening with newfound hope. "I don't know if I'll ever find them. But at least now, I know I still have a real family out there. I've never felt so hopeful in my life." James gently took her hand in his own eyes filled with emotion. "I'm happy for you. Truly," he said, voice thick with feeling. "You deserve this. You deserve to know the truth. To have your family. To have a place you can call home, in every sense of the word." He paused, then added, with utter sincerity. "If you decide to go looking for them, I'll go with you. I don't know how long that journey will be, or what it might hold. But I'll be there, every step of the way. So that when the day comes and you finally find them, I'll be right there to witness it with you." Diep couldn't hold back her tears, but this time, they were tears of joy. She leaned gently onto his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the calm, unwavering presence of the man beside her. A man who had quietly walked into her life like a peaceful harbor. And now, was ready to walk beside her, all the way back to where her story began. So, will Diep be able to return to the home she once lost, to the place where her parents and blood relatives may still be waiting? And will James, the man with the warm, steadfast heart, become her companion, walking with her to the very end of this journey to rediscover her roots? The road ahead may still be long and uncertain. But with love, hope, and a faith that never fades, perhaps a miracle awaits, somewhere out there. Stay tuned for the next episode to follow this heartfelt journey.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa mọi người đến với câu chuyện tình yêu của CEO James và cô gái nghèo Lý Tự Diệp. Như mọi người đã biết thì hai người đã gắn bó với nhau một thời gian rất là dài. James và Diệp đã cùng nhau trải qua rất là nhiều khó khăn gian khổ. Tuy nhiên thì hiện tại James và Diệp vẫn đang phải đối mặt với một sự thật, đó là cái gia thế và thân thế của Diệp. liệu thân thế của Diệp đang là một ẩn số. Và hiện tại thì nhờ có Pao, người chồng cũ, đã tiết lộ với Diệp rằng cha mẹ cô thì vẫn còn sống và cô vẫn còn người thân. Điều đó khiến Diệp không thể ngờ, vì mấy chục năm nay cô sống trên đời, cô luôn nghĩ là cha mẹ mình đã chết và cô còn không có ý định tìm lại, mà bỗng nhưng một ngày cô biết được là họ đang còn sống như thế. Vậy thì liệu CEO James với tài ba và khả năng kinh tế của mình có thể giúp Diệp tìm về gia đình không? Thì hãy đón xem ở tập sau nha mọi người.